Halfway through the college football season, buyout season, the race to the playoff, everything is coming to a head as we welcome in
Wednesday, October 15th, 2025.
From the Penn State Board of Trustees, the son of Joe Paterno. He's joined us before. It is Jay Paterno. Jay, thanks for your time this morning. Welcome back to 1620 The Zone in Omaha.
Good to be on.
Hey, let's start from the beginning. So 34 weeks ago, 5 minutes from going to the national championship game, Penn State was feeling really good. And then on Sunday, after losing their third straight game, James Franklin is out of a job. Jay, how did Penn State get to this point where James Franklin won 13 games last year, is unemployed, and now all of a sudden they have an opening at Penn State?
It is dizzying to think about it. And even if you want to shorten that time zone, that time frame, you look at a couple weeks ago, we're up 7 points against Oregon in the first overtime. Oregon's got 4th and 1. If we stop them, we win. We're probably number 2 or number 1 in the country. I think, between last year and this year, I think the expectations really outran how good this team was. Tom Coughlin, they won the Super Bowl in 2012, and they were 9-7. The next year, someone said, "Hey, Tom, what could you possibly need to improve on because you won the Super Bowl?" He said, "Hey, we were a 9-7 football team." And if you look at Penn State last year, there were 3 games that you look at that they won in one play. So they were as close to being an 8-4 team last year as they were to get the national championship. So nobody looked at it that way, and the expectation levels became national championship or bust. So I think when the Oregon loss happened, there was a real hangover and a cloud that just kind of came in, and they couldn't shake it before UCLA. And then the Northwestern loss really kind of shocked everybody, as did the UCLA thing. And I think, there's been some impatience and some criticism of the record against certain teams or certain teams that are ranked high. And I think that it became a pretty toxic environment. We had college hockey game on last Thursday, and when the other team scored a goal, the student, and this is college hockey, the student section of Penn State was chanting "Fire Franklin."
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy.
That's crazy. Jay, Matt here. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, I don't have to tell you that this isn't just a normal moving on from a head coach and trying to find a new head coach, right? This is a very special set of circumstances considering, how many wins James Franklin had and the fact that Penn State was a nationally relevant program that was competing in the top 10 and just never seemed to be able to get, that Big Ten Conference Championship win or that national championship win. Considering all of the circumstances, what do you think are some of the challenges that might come in this head coaching search for Penn State?
Well, I think the challenge is going to be this. If you're a school like Penn State or Nebraska or Alabama or whatever it may be, the blue blood, if you fire your coach in October, the kind of profile that you're looking for in your next head coach is most likely going to be somebody who's very successful at another pretty high-level program. Now, that may not be the case, but those guys are engaged in seasons that are successful themselves, and they may not want to leave. So you're going to have a hard time getting some of these guys even talk to you at this point that you might want to talk to. And again, I am not privy to any lists or anything like that. But that's the challenge, is to get the person you want. And, with the signing day being in December and all these things, that makes it hard to get a guy on board that's going to help you retain your recruiting class, because the high-level guys they're in the middle of some great things they're doing themselves.
Let's get right to this, because you know why we have you on. He played. Played for your dad. You know him. And you coached him. So how viable is Matt Rhule to Penn State, and how viable is it? Doesn't make sense for Matt Rhule to be involved at Penn State?
Well, I don't want to get into Matt Rhule's thinking or that kind of stuff. I want to be careful, because I don't want to say something to you guys, and then the next press conference, Matt Rhule's got to answer a question because
we promise we won't.
Yeah, we won't.
But I will say that let me talk in the abstract about Matt Rhule and the job he's done in Nebraska. And I think he's done a really good job in Nebraska. I think he's a really good coach. And I think that if you look at the things he espouses and the kind of things he has in his program, discipline, toughness, that kind of stuff, I think Nebraska, as I look at, I know they're coming to Penn State in a few weeks. That game scares the heck out of me because I know they're playing really well. They're playing solid defense. They got a quarterback now that has really kind of found his mojo with Holgerson as the offensive coordinator. So I think Matt is a guy that certainly a lot of programs would love to have in their program. But that said, that's all I'm going to say because, and I'm not implying that we are involved because, again, I'm a trustee. The AD's got to make this call. I'm not going to stick my nose in. And like I said, I've known Matt for a long time. He's a state college, went to high school in the same high school I did, state college, although many years after me, because I'm a much older vintage than he is. But one of the great guys I ever coached, and I've loved watching his coaching career. And I really hope Nebraska, with the exception of 1 week, has a great run in this season.
So let me.
They could easily run the table. Not easily. They could run the table and be in the playoff. I mean, I think they're close.
How important? Because I know what you're saying, but you know what Penn State needs. How important is it to have a connection to the Paterno tree as the next head coach at Penn State, understanding the landscape of the passion of that fan base and also mixing in the current setup of college athletics?
I think, it's a factor that would certainly weigh in someone's favor if they were connected. But I would also say this. I think the most important thing is, it's got to be the right fit, no matter who it is. And it's got to be somebody who understands whether you're from the Paterno coaching tree or not, understand the commitment to academics and athletics has got to be there. Nebraska's got a great tradition of that, too, with tons of academic All-Americans, just like Penn State. You got to have that commitment. Because I think if you look at us the last 10, 12 years, we've been 17th out of 18 in the Big Ten in APR rating, the academic performance rating. So I think there's some people that would like to see that come back to where we were, where we belong academically and athletically. There's a commitment to doing things in the community, having the right kind of people around. And not that didn't happen with James, I'm not applying that in any way. But I think it's important for someone that comes here to understand. And I think sometimes you see people kind of really swing for the fences with a coaching hire, and it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be important that the fit is right. That's why when Matt got hired in Nebraska, I thought that's a great fit for Nebraska and for Matt. And I think certainly I would hope Penn State, we find someone with the right fit because, at the end of the day, as my dad used to say about recruiting, recruiting is a little bit like getting married. You can tell a couple little white lies to make yourself look better, but sooner or later you got to live together, and you got to be realistic about what's going to happen. And I think that's been the most important thing for Penn State is to get somebody who understands what we're about.
So Jay, bringing all your thoughts together here, right? Because you're totally on point in terms of, obviously, I mean, any football program, but Penn State specifically is going to want to hire a coach that has had a lot of success and probably is coaching right now and coaching a really good team right now. But then you bring up fit. How do you balance those two things in your opinion? Are you more willing to take a coach that has those pelts on the wall, that has the national championships, that has those conference championships that may not be the greatest fit as opposed to, or you're going to take a guy who's a better fit that doesn't have those pelts on the wall?
I think fit is number one by no question. I mean, I remember when Rich Rodriguez went to Michigan, and I said, oh man, it's Michigan, it's all that, but he's got a system that he likes with certain types of quarterbacks. Michigan had none of those guys on the roster, and I knew Rich, and I just felt like that might not be a good setup for him. And it turned out I was right. Not that I'm Nostradamus or anything, but fit is really, really important because at the end of the day, the fan base wants someone who understands. I mean, the people that are buying your season tickets and have been for years, much like the parallels between Nebraska and Penn State are really. There's a lot of parallels. You have people that have had season tickets forever. I mean, this is generational stuff. This isn't just like I've had them for 5 years. And some of these season tickets get handed down to the next generation. So there are people that have an expectation of what Penn State stands for and what it means. And I think understanding that fit is going to be vital for whoever becomes the next head coach.
Hey, you not only coach there, your whole life has been Penn State. You've written about it. You know the landscape of college athletics. We're going to go in a month and see Beaver Stadium, and it's in the middle of a $700 million renovation project. The university or the athletic department just had $49 million go out the door to get rid of James Franklin. If you look at the landscape, and we're big fans, by the way, from afar of Pat Kraft. We've actually gotten to know him at Big Ten Media Days with his connection with Matt Rhule. How good is the Penn State job right now in today's college football, Jay?
Well, we've invested close to $900 million in facilities, in the stadium renovation. Probably too much. We probably overdoing the stadium a little bit, but there's going to be a debt load that we have to deal with. But in terms of this fan base and the excitement for what comes next, I think it's a hungry fan base right now that wants that will support whoever becomes the next guy. I think, look, we're fortunate that we're within 3-4 hours of a ton of talent by car.
Mm-hmm.
You go into DC, you go into Philly, you go to Pittsburgh, you go to New Jersey. So I mean, you can recruit here. It's a lot. There's a lot of good things, but I know fans on your radio station do not want to hear me selling Penn State as a great destination to anybody who may or may not be listening.
How? One final one. What do you think? Because I know you're playing the good role of you're on the Penn State Board of Trustees, but in your mind, what do you think the timeline looks like? I mean, more than likely, whoever is the next head coach currently is coaching, and they're not going to leave tomorrow. But what do you think the timeline will look like when they finally get to their decision?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think there's still, in the middle of the season, I think there's a lot of other moving parts. But I would assume that, look, most ADs, if they're worth their salt, have a piece of paper or a note that has some potential short list, because your coach could leave or resign or get hit by a bus. Hopefully not hit by a bus, but so I think they generally have some ideas. But once you're actually dealt with reality, then I think there's an element of, I've got these 2 or 3 guys I like, but I better look around and see for somebody maybe I don't know. And years ago, my dad in 1968 had an undefeated season, and Don Cannon was the AD at Michigan. And Don called him, and they met in Pittsburgh, and Don offered him a job. And Joe said, I'm not going to go. I like where I'm at. But 2 days later, Don Cannon called and said, hey, have you heard of a guy named Bo Schembechler? And Joe said, I have, but I don't really know him. And Don Cannon said, well, Woody Hayes told me it's the best assistant coach he's ever had. And Joe said, well, you ought to hire him before Woody said that. And when it was announced, everybody said, who the heck is Bo Schembechler? The Michigan fans were not excited about it, but 10 years, pretty soon they got real excited about it. So there may be somebody out there that nobody's even thought of. So, we'll see.
Jay,
but I will tell you guys, if you come out for the Penn State game, make sure you hit me up. We'll take you and get you some food.
Oh, we are on it. Thank you, Jay. We appreciate it as always. That's Jay Paterno, member, of course, the son of the late Joe Paterno, Penn State Board of Trustees.